Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. As always, want to welcome back. We've got Gregory Wrightstone with us, the author of Inconvenient Facts, the science that Al Gore doesn't want you to know. Gregory, good morning to you, sir.
Hey, good morning to you.
It's always great to have you on. I'd like to talk just briefly about about the climate summit or whatever they did last night on CNN. I don't know. Are you familiar with what they did last night on CNN?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, actually, I was on Fox News with Laura Ingraham last night, so I was forced to watch 3.5 hours of it before I had to go to the into the studio for the show. And so it wasn't, they called it a town hall. I called it the clown hall because these guys were, it's a clown car full of climate alarmist claptrap it's crazy what they believe.
Yeah.
It really is. And it just flies in the face of the true science, facts, and data. There were several, looking at it, just about all of them, there were several things they all agreed on. They want to, number one, they all agree we have to get off of fossil fuels. We have to move away entirely from fossil fuels. The only difference they are is how quickly they want to do it. Some want to do it by 2025, some by 2030, 2050. But they all say we have to move away from it. And nearly all of them, I think all of them, although maybe didn't state it, was they want America to transition over to 100% electric vehicles. That's really what they're after. If you're going to move away from fossil fuels, you're going to have to do that. And, well, just think about it. Right now, what are there? There are four main types of electrical sourcing that we have that provide reliable, abundant energy. And what are they? It's hydroelectric, dams, nuclear, natural gas, and coal. And we could probably throw in, they used to make electric out of oil, but there's very little of that now. So you got those four. Well, they want to transition away from all but nuclear and hydro. And if you think there are going to be any new nuclear plants or hydroelectric dams built in the United States in the next 20 years, you better, you got to bet another thing coming. It ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
So what they want to do is move America. They already cannot reach 100% electrification using wind and solar. Well, more 100% transition to electric cars, what's that going to do? That's going to stress the system even more with more consumption. I think they're shooting themselves in the foot, and I think they're handing
with electric vehicles, for example. I mean, where do those batteries come from? I mean,
exactly. Yeah, China, rare earth minerals from China, and I think your listeners are rational, sane individuals, aren't they?
Yes.
That are pretty well educated. Mm-hmm. And I think those people, like your listeners, can see right through this and see these guys are just I think these people are handing the election to Donald Trump, and that's okay with me. But because I think the rational, sane people in the United States realize we can't get away from fossil fuels, and that's and what's their overall objective? What is it? Their overall objective is to change the temperature of the Earth. When you say it like that, it's usually not stated that bluntly, but that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to change the temperature of the Earth, and they think Earth. So they think they can do that by reducing fossil fuel use and cutting carbon dioxide emissions. And it just like I told Laura last night, I said if we look at dialing back carbon dioxide emissions by 100% in the United States, the amount of temperature rise that would be averted using their own numbers would be 0.07 of a degree Fahrenheit by 2050. 0.07. How many jobs lost is that worth? I'd say zero.
Yeah.
And actually that data, I've got a new smartphone app that's pretty awesome. If you search for Inconvenient Facts, you can pull that thing up, and it's got this simulator where you can dial in various measurements of CO2 decreases by various percentages, and and see what actually that would do to any future temperature rise. And again, that's using their own data.
And by the way, I downloaded your app. It is fantastic. So, Inconvenient.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Inconvenient Facts. It's really good. We're talking with Gregory Wrightstone, geologist, author of Inconvenient Facts. So you mentioned they want to get completely off of fossil fuels. You know what they're going. I mean, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. This is her tweet, and this was related to Hurricane Dorian. I can already hear climate deniers screeching. It's always been like this. You're dim. No, this is about science and leadership. We either decarbonize and cut emissions, or we don't and let people die. Pretty Armageddon type philosophy coming from her.
Yeah, it's really, it's not funny. I was going to say it's funny. It's sad, but these climate alarmists now, for the first time, I see that there are three things they're saying that climate change. Why climate change has affected Dorian and effectively created the hurricane. Number one, they say that the number of hurricanes is increasing. Well, that's just completely false. And in fact, the NOAA data shows. I've got a chart up on my website and Facebook and LinkedIn showing landfalling hurricanes in the United States dating back to 1850. Have been in a pretty significant decline. So the number are declining. And also in the satellite era, since the late 70s, we see that there's been not a huge decline, but there's been a pretty steady and slight decline in the number of both tropical storms and hurricanes. The other thing they say is that intensity of the hurricanes is increasing. And in theory, climatologists that I respect, like John Christie, say that warming ocean temperatures, in theory, should lead to a slight increase in hurricane wind speeds and intensity. But in practice, we're just not recognizing that at all. Observational data says that that's not occurring. Christopher Land sees the top NOAA hurricane. And isn't that a great name for a hurricane expert? Yeah. Christopher Land C. It's almost as good as a geologist named Wrightstone.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But he says that, according to him, and let's just say he's right, he says that wind speeds should increase 1% to 2% in the coming years. Well, I don't think anybody on the Grand Bahamas, when the hurricane hit, could tell the difference between 142 and 144 miles per hour. Mm-hmm. You know, mm-hmm. And that's so. Any increase is negligible. And the second thing that they're talking about is that the wind speed and stalling of the hurricanes has been exacerbated by climate change and global warming. And I looked at the NOAA data yesterday. They actually have a chart of wind speeds dating back to 1850. And although Dorian was among the slowest at 1 mile per hour of the hurricanes they had listed, the bulk of the real slow ones occurred early in the 20th century, late in the 19th century. So that, we can blow what they're telling us, all three things, number, intensity, and wind speed, they're all just contradicted by actually science, facts, and data.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, and you mentioned earlier, Gregory, that they're trying to control, like if we do X, then they can control the global temperature. But to take what Ocasio-Cortez says, I mean, they're also, like you say, they're also actually saying if we will follow their instructions, they can control the wind speeds of hurricanes. I mean, if we weren't in the 21st century, you'd think we were talking about some fantasy novel that had to do with wizards or something. I mean, they're claiming powers that are. It's just ludicrous to think that you could control the weather.
Well, unless it is, and especially they think that they're demonizing this, which should be considered a miracle molecule, and that's carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is we're seeing just tremendous benefits from the Earth's ecosystems, and in correlation to that, and hence because of that, humanity's benefiting greatly from the slight rise in temperatures we've seen. The warming we've seen, thankfully, coming out of the horrific little ice age, the cold of that. We see an Earth that's prospering, thriving, and greening. and that's what I talk a lot about, are the many, and we never hear it, do we? We never hear about any benefits from rising temperatures and increasing CO2, and we're seeing that, and all they do, if we look in history's rearview mirror, let's look behind us and where we've come from. What's happened over the last 100 years to humanity and the Earth? Everything's getting better just by about every metric you look at. If you're looking at pollution, the Earth, the air and water are cleaner today and keep improving. We see life expectancy that continues to lengthen. We see that crop growth is outpacing population growth with really no end in sight. We break records year after year after year, and a lot of that's due to warming temperatures and increasing CO2. The CO2 increase is fueling crop growth with what's called CO2 fertilization effect. And the warming temperatures we see are lengthening growing seasons. We can get more plantings in, killing frost, stop earlier in the spring and arrive later in the fall. These are all really good things. We see, and they're talking about the Amazon burning, and I've got a commentary again up at the website on that, and I show a chart there just showing that the number of fires in the Amazon is just smack dab in the middle of what the average has been over the last 20 or so years.
But they're they're the lungs of the Earth, Gregory. The lungs.
Yeah,
of the
well,
Earth.
yeah, that's what no one really knows where that came from. They're claiming 20% of the oxygen. Well, no, I've looked at some true experts that say it's somewhere between 4 and 9%. But then all the oxygen that's produced in that forest is actually then consumed by the same forest and in the nature and ecosystems of the forest. So it's a net zero for the Amazon. Not to say that we shouldn't be. I'm not endorsing burning down rainforest, but these are yearly events that occur, and we're right in the middle of the peak of this first year of September is the peak of the burning of the dry season and the fire season in the Amazon.
Wow. Gregory Wrightstone, sir, it's always great to talk to you, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing, and glad that you're going on great shows like Laura Ingram's on Fox News, and we'll do this again sometime. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you.
All righty, Gregory Wrightstone, everybody. Again, author of Inconvenient Facts.